Hey y'all, my name's Angelica Rubio, State Representative for District 35, representing the City of Las Cruces, and this is a brief update. So next month is the start of our 30-day session here in New Mexico. I can give a brief update later about what that 30-day session entails once we have a little bit more details. But I've been having a lot of conversations with folks about the 30-day session and particularly about a bill that I will be helping to carry, which is to end our relationship with private prisons here in New Mexico. It is a bill that I have carried a version of for almost a decade that I've been serving in the legislature. And so I feel pretty good about our chances heading into this upcoming session, but definitely being very cautiously optimistic because a lot can change in 30 days. Again, I can give some more details on the private prison bill once we have more details. We're getting a lot of that language in the bill finalized, and so I'll share that as soon as we have more details. But the reason I wanted to come on here is because part of my conversations that I've been having with folks about the private prison bill, we've also seen an increase of not just an increase of immigration raids and people being detained, but an expansion of who is being targeted during these raids and during these detentions. And so there's a bit of an overlap, and it's that overlap that I want to talk about because if I'm being perfectly honest, it's become a little unsettling to me as we head into this session, and I want to share a little bit about why. And not only why, but just also I guess like a call to action of what to look out for. So right now, with a lot of the immigration raids and a lot of the folks who've been detained, we've been seeing it in real time on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok. And I think the thing that has a lot of us very worried, obviously, is that the people who are being targeted are people who have lived here for years, people who have had work permits who are allowed to be here to work, and people who have green cards, people who even US citizens have been detained. And so I think for a lot of folks, it feels like it's getting closer to us, and so that has been really scary. But the piece that I think I have been focused more on lately is the footage that has been shared on social media. The people who have been sharing it have been talking about calling out the administration around. I thought we were only going to I thought that the administration was only going to target criminals. And I know part of it is coming from like sarcasm. I know that people understandably are angry because when they see this footage, they are taken aback because they're like, wait, that's not what I voted for. And the part that I want to spend some time on is that, and this isn't a popular opinion, but it still assumes that there was a group of people that would have been okay to deport and detain, or detain and deport. And that idea of criminalizing a certain type of immigrant, that didn't appear on its own. It didn't just appear during the second Trump administration. It's been going on for a very long time. For decades in this country, we as a nation, we have heard policymakers talk about public safety a lot. And that's meant, when we talk about public safety, it's meant like longer sentences. It talks about harsher penalties and incarcerating more people. And let me remind you, it's not because it made our community safer. It's not because it actually worked, but it was because it was politically safe to talk about all of those things in the name of public safety because it guaranteed somebody's reelection, but it didn't solve anything. Punishment just became the automatic answer. And we've gone over the course of the last few decades, especially here in New Mexico, we have normalized cages. We created an entire economic development ecosystem around private prisons and making money off of the number of beds that were being occupied by people. And for as long as, I'm sure, since you were a kid, as far as long as I've been around, I grew up just learning that if we're not doing anything wrong, we don't have anything to worry about. And so we learned to live with detention centers in our backyard. We learned to accept harsher laws. We learned to look away, as long as it wasn't going to impact me, as long as it wasn't going to impact us. And so once you accept that cages are okay for some people, the line then keeps moving. First, it's people without papers who are criminals. Then it's people just without papers. Then it's people with papers. Then it's people with old charges. Then it's people who made mistakes a long time ago. And in the case of New Mexico, which we've been seeing over the course of the last 3 years, is now we're targeting young people. That is not an accident, y'all. That is what happens when punishment becomes a main tool. This is why some of us in the New Mexico State Legislature have been working really hard to push to end private prisons here in the state, because we know that incarceration does not make communities safer. Investment is what makes communities safer. And so as we prepare for the upcoming legislative session next month, and we continue to talk about the private prison bill and what that's going to look like, I want to be very clear that ending private prisons here in New Mexico only matters if we also stop expanding punishment everywhere else. If we close private prisons here in New Mexico, but continue to increase penalties, increase sentences, cages still win. And so here's my call to action. As we head into the legislative session next month, pay attention to what's happening where you live, there in your local communities, there in your local counties, and pay attention to your city council, to your county commissioners. Pay attention to what your state legislators are doing, your state senators. Pay attention to what people are quietly adjusting to, and pay attention to those votes. Who's going to vote for private prisons? Who's going to vote against private prisons? Who is going to vote to reduce incarceration? Who keeps reaching for punishment every single time there's pressure? Y'all, public safety is not a slogan. It is a set of choices. And the choices that we make this next legislative session around public safety, this is what's going to shape a lot more than what people want to admit. And so I urge you all to really just pay attention, you all. I will be in touch again to talk about the legislature and the upcoming session and all the mechanics around all of that. But in the meantime, stay safe, take care of one another, take care of your neighbors, look out for one another, and take care of yourselves.